second package, which is starting to fade out aggressively, and sometimes you just get the players that are trying to get you.
Yep.
Now let's say
drop with the Mecharoo, but then the two slot filled with Galvanize.
Augmented Elic, and he even only had one copy of Acolyte Pain. Bloodyface is going to have more things to bridge the gap to ensure that there's no snowballing from the Hunter. At least if it does end up having an advantage for the Hunter, because it's hard to stop them sometimes.
Yeah.
That at least it's not nearly as severe. You know, when you're playing a lot more like Archivist Elysiana, and you're playing like the Harrison Jones and the Oozes and the Youthful Brewmaster, you're stuck with a lot of more situational cards that don't do anything. Sometimes just playing a 3-mana 3/4 is just okay enough to fight back and stall just a little bit. And Bloodyface, for example, just being on the play with Towncry already is a great start. And the moment he picks up other tools like, the Augmented Elic, the Clockwork Goblins, the Acolyte Pain, just to have early game board presence, I think he's going to be all right.
Well, he is on the coin, but point still stands.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
It looked like he was only hyped.
Not too much of a difference, though, since PNC only has one drop. And he showed us yesterday that he's unless he has an ideal hand, he's not even going to keep the Mecharoo in this matchup. Maybe it changes because of the fact that Bloodyface does have Eternium Rover, but who knows?
All right, so already some differences from yesterday versus today. PNC was mulliganing pretty aggressively for cards like Galvanizer yesterday, but Galvanizer was in the opening hand for PNC, but no cheap one-drop like you're talking about with the Mecharoo. And then more importantly, didn't really feel like it had good synergy with his hand, even if you kept Galvanizer. Galvanizer needs to hit powerful curves into turns 3 and 4, and it often requires hitting Explodinator into a War Gear or the Replicating Menace. Now, PNC finally does get the Mecharoo. It's actually a pretty decent pickup because he didn't really have that good of a play this turn outside the Direwolf Alpha.
Yeah.
Unleash the Hounds is like, meh.
Yeah, one copy of Unleash the Hounds in PNC's primary deck, which, definitely in there to have a little bit of more game against rogues, I would assume. They go a little bit wider on board than they used to because of the lackeys.
Right.
But not that great in this matchup. And you do have to take value when you can, but this is definitely not the time. Direwolf Alpha and Mecharoo together do give him a little bit more game, but I'm not sure if he wants to part ways with the Direwolf Alpha now, because it seems like a great card to follow up after Explodinator to try and trade in those bombs, and it doesn't make his board that much better, but it does apply that consistent pressure. So I'm curious whether or not he hero powers or Direwolf Alpha's here. And I do like the hold for the reasons I just mentioned.
Yes. Completely agreed there. Shield Slam, it's okay. Not necessarily a super important tool right now, but one thing that does become kind of a very interesting dynamic is that Mech Hunter can stack, or any just mech deck in general can stack a minion really high up, and all of a sudden you lose that armor to be able to Shield Slam. So I've seen some players, play a little bit more liberally with that just to make sure to keep that threat down early game. Still not going to be grounds to use it right now, but just keep that in mind because Bloodyface doesn't have a lot of ways to gain armor, especially since that Eternium Rover went down so fast.
Yeah, it is one of the hardest cards to play, and I have seen some Bomb Warrior lists cut Shield Slam altogether to go for more mid-range style.
Use it here. I mean, I get it. Like, he has kind of a curve, right? Militia Commander, like Harrison Jones, Coin, Blastmaster Room. He has no bombs, but I mean, he has other curves, so if he needs to stop damage from happening early, if he needs to utilize Shield Slam while he can, why not take down a 3-attack minion?
Yeah. And knows that Explodinator, which is the just standard turn 4 play from Hunter, I mentioned it yesterday, it is one of the highest win rate cards in the deck overall in pretty much any matchup. He has the Warpath available, so he has checks for both the big 4 drops, and I think that's why, like you mentioned, trying to get the Shield Slam out of hand as early as possible. I think the problem for Bloodyface is going to be kind of the mid-game. He does have to keep the board in check because if he's forced to use Warpath early, his removal options are limited, and Blastmaster Boom with no bomb activations currently in his hand means that that's just kind of a dead 7-drop. You can't afford to just spend your whole turn not developing. That changes things slightly, but still not the best.
Yep, that individual trade into the Town Crier. Trying to make a little sense of it just at the top of my head, but I think overall he's just kind of trying to protect his interest of his mechs, so that way there's more health on it as best as he can. Doesn't want to give Town Crier an opportunity to potentially survive if we get damage onto his bombs. One of the more interesting things about mech decks is how bombs are dealt with. The Goblin bombs that are 0-2s, you don't want to kill them because they deal damage to yourself and help accelerate the game plan for Hunter. But you also have a dynamic where it becomes a target for magnetic.
Yes.
That happens on the other side too. You know, you might be staring down the face of, or staring down the barrel rather, of a lot of bombs, and you're like, huh, this seems really hard to deal with. But sometimes the mech hunter's like, I need to protect these interests too because I don't want it to die, but I do want it to die. And that becomes a little tricky too.
Yeah, I think it's about timing, right? At least for the warrior player in this specific matchup, it's about knowing when to get rid of the bombs on the board, because if you can have a read that there's no magnetics, then you can leave them up on the board until you've stabilized a little bit and have a clean board and a stable life total even post bombs to be able to deal with that. We saw Firebat navigate that quite well yesterday, but this play honestly is a little surprising. He's playing on curve, but Ziliax is a great way for tempo. It's also a great way to just latch on to another mech and make something big that's hard to deal with. I was thinking Explodinator was still just a solid play that last turn.
He knows the Town Crier Rush minion is in the hand though, and like, you know, any of the rushers are just problematic for him to deal with. So Ziliax stops that rusher and allows him to stay on curve and mana efficient. You know, ironically enough, Ziliax is like the most resilient mech that Warrior can't deal with very easily. So he gives him a magnetic target next turn. Let's say he picks up the missile launcher or the war gear here. Okay, all right. That actually works out really nicely for PNC because he can heal immediately from this attack.
Yeah, that's not good for Bloodyface because that gets rid of the option of being able to coin Blastmaster Boom the next turn.
Right.
Well, he can still do it, but it would just be for one bomb if he were to swing at the Wrench Caliber instead of two, which I'm sure he was hoping for. That's like
what to do.
What was Hunter Ace's theory at the World Championship? That whenever that Dire Frenzy, it always shuffles one to the top of the deck?
Yeah, so there was definitely a rumor that was floating around within the pro player circle that the shuffle mechanic was bugged. Like many complaints in any digital card game ever, the shuffler is broken!
Yeah.
That's like one of the top complaints I've ever seen. And they were saying that when you shuffled a minion through Dire Frenzy, there was like an imbalanced proportionate amount of times that you draw it immediately from the top. So like a lot of people would do it with like Tundra Rhino. They immediately draw the 5/7 Tundra Rhino or 5/8 Tundra Rhino. They'd be like, wow, this is just not fair. But they also don't realize that when you Dire Frenzy something, you're statistically more likely to draw that card than any other card.
Especially considering the fact that, especially if you're Dire Frenzying a Tundra Rhino, the very earliest it can come down is turn 5. You've already drawn through nearly 10 cards of your deck. And that's earliest if you stick a Tundra Rhino with a coin and then Dire Frenzy at the very next turn.
That being said, I do feel like it's been very amusing that we've seen bombs either go to the top of the deck or the bottom.
It's very rare that they're sprinkled out throughout the deck. It's like they're all in the bottom 5 or they're all just drawn right away. We haven't had much in between.
I guess Ziliax, by the way, getting the work done, dealing 9 damage to the Warrior.
Yeah.
And, I mean, whole War Gear picked up. Okay, this is an important decision-making from PNC. He can go for, like, the slow value, or not the slow value, the slow incremental advantages, like Venomizer, and slowly push damage, weave, and hero powers. Or he can just, like, go really ham and try to destroy the Warrior.
This is a tough turn, because he also has a decent Unleash the Hounds, and also has Direwolf Alpha.
Yes.
And Unleash the Hounds is the hardest card to use, but he also has a nice Venomancer plus War Gear turn to deal with the Blastmaster Boom and push a significant amount of damage. So both those plays seem reasonable.
Yeah,
both those plays could get worse if the board is removed from Bloodyface's side, gets rid of the potential for Unleash the Hounds, or if his mechs get removed and gets rid of the potential for War Gear.
Now.
Yeah, I mean, I like the logic of what you're saying. Unleash the Hounds is harder to use. It's dealing 3 damage at least right now if you go all face. You can also use Direwolf to trade. Venomizer. So he's going to go for the Venomizer and the War Gear. I like pushing damage.
Yep. Puts Bloodyface down to 7. He does have the immediate burst of armor from Weapons Project, but that sort of cancels itself out unless he were to play Harrison Jones alongside with it, but that's an entire turn.
Yeah, well, he has Weapons Project Militia Commander to clear off everything. It's about how much damage is going to be dealt with these boom bots to make it more efficient. I mean, even in an ideal world, Bloodyface can control these boom bots and eliminate that 5 cent altogether. Play Weapons Project Harrison Jones. He's back in the game, if not firmly ahead. These boom bots. It's a 2 damage. It's not ideal. Bloodyface, he went for the damage spread opportunity because if he attacks into it, he might be able to deal 2 damage to the Explodinator as well.
I think if his plan is to Militia Commander, it might be better to trade that into the Explodinator because if you hit the Explodinator, then you could still Militia Commander Weapons Project. I guess that's more damage overall.
That's not the ideal way to deal with this. I think Bloodyface is going to Militia Commander, take the 2.
Defend the gate!
Maybe even Weapons Project instead of just hit armor up. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's because I think he's just afraid of dying, and like one of these things, the longer the game goes, the warrior is going to be okay. Another war gear. But this is the downside of PNC's previous play. His hand is so awkward.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I felt like Unleash the Hounds had an opportunity to be utilized.
Yes.
I understand the logic, though. If the board gets cleared like the way it was, PNC didn't have a Venomizer target. He wouldn't be able to get War Gear in for damage.
Who to shoot?
But Unleash the Hounds is just literally unplayable in this position.
Yeah, I think the risk of having Unleash the Hounds unplayable is worse than the risk of having the War Gear unplayable. Because War Gear can just be played as a 5/5, as we're going to see right now anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas Unleash the Hounds, like you said, literally unplayable. It does nothing. You can't even use the card from your hand, which was the downside to the play that he made previously.
Plus, 1 Brawl in the deck for Bloodyface, 1 Warpath already used, so it's like harder to deal with those massive targets.
Yeah.
7/7 from Dr. Boom can only attack 1 target. It's a completely different timeline like we're talking about, and so, you know, yes, we could talk about the hypotheticals, but now PNC has chosen to wait for Bloodyface to develop a little bit more, and now with that Harrison Jones picking up Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
I just don't think it's enough time. Unleash the Hounds plus Direwolf Alpha is lethal damage.
Oh yeah, even just a Fireworks tech too.
Yeah, even just Fireworks tech, yeah.
So it ends up working out okay because Bloodyface didn't have enough to deal with this War Gear. Game number 1, over to the Hunter. Gets his first win in Grandmasters.
Yeah.
And it ends up panning out all right. And, you know, I gotta say that the Mech Hunter just shows off why it's still a scary deck.
His deck, which had Big Game Hunters and Super Colliders, that if PNC had just queued his primary deck again, he'd be incredibly unfavored. And PNC actually queued his primary deck again, so his choice paid off. And now, Bloodyface decides to just go all in with his tertiary deck and make the read that PNC is going to go for his greedy deck, and it pays off for him. So it's like these crazy mind games where if PNC had just queued his primary deck again, he would be incredibly favored because Big Game Hunters would be pretty much dead. Now, one thing that we have to talk about with Specialists is that even though these players have open deck lists and can see all 3 of their players' deck variations, they don't know at the beginning of the game which one they've queued.
Right. This looks the same on both sides.
Yes.
So far.
And you have to, the way you play changes based off of what information you have. So PNC, if he knew that Bloodyface went with his tertiary deck and knew that Big Game Hunters and Super Colliders were a possibility, it would change the way he played. It would change the way he magnetized onto minions. It would make it so he wouldn't go all in on one big threat to be vulnerable to Big Game Hunter.
Right.
He would care about Super Collider positioning more. Like, those are things that have to play into your mind, and it's going to be hard for him to know until he sees Big Game Hunter or Super Collider, because the other cards still exist in Bloodyface's deck with a Mega Devastator and Brawl. So just a very interesting dynamic with the decks that were queued in this game number 2.
Yeah, I want to make the argument that, yes, Bloodyface has the 2 Big Game Hunters, which feel kind of dead against mechs if they know you're playing against it, but I think having a second Brawl, a Super Collider, and a Mega Devastator is just universally good.
Sure.
So
that's the brilliance of his tertiary deck.
Yeah, and so I think things like Weapons Project, Harrison Jones, and Tony Remover, while they're like useful, I don't think that they're very good against Mech Hunter. So, you know, I personally think that Bloodyface is going to be switching to third deck almost every time.
Well, I do think that weapons projects are very good against Mech Hunter. But just because the way they win is by snowballing. And yes, you'll take an even amount of damage. You give your opponent a weapon which makes their traits better, but you don't care about that. You just care about stifling their board pressure.
That's fair. Yeah, it's like it's good to like take down the the Venomizer and like the Direwolf Alpha.
Direwolf Alpha, yeah,
that's fair.
So I do think that choice is good. And Harrison Jones just kind of goes along with that in a way because you kind of get rid of the downside of Weapons Project, plus you get to draw cards. But,
okay, that's fair.
But yeah, Super Collider I think is good. But Big Game Hunter, honestly...
It makes it so that way they can't really stack that big threat. Like,
sure.
You're okay leaving more like one minion on the board, like this 3/2, because if they magnetize War Gear on it, you just BGH right back. The real threat then is the bombs, which has always been the case and will continue to be the case.
But the problem with Big Game Hunter that I see in this matchup is you can't really afford to have dead turns in this matchup, because if you fall behind on life total, then you feel like you're playing defensively the whole game. What the heck?
All right.
I mean, the theory is starting.
The theory is starting to line up a little bit more. I don't know.
That's bizarre.
That's also annoying for Bloodyface, because given that he wants to play Blastmaster.
Defend the gates!
Still, though, he still has the board, and PNC is behind. And, like, despite everything we talked about with tech, everything that's been happening so far has been the non-tech, the normal base primary deck, the 25 cards that we've come to expect and know, which I think goes to show you the importance of having that good core deck. And more importantly, that Warrior isn't as helpless as you might think if it's able to get all those early rush minions, because the double Milish Commander Ziliak's hand... it's fantastic for Bloodyface.
Yep. But PNC does have the option to go for a little bit of a longer game plan with his secondary deck that he's gone with.
Yeah.
Double 9 lives, Karen Bloodhoof, and double Mechanical is a big punch in the late game.
Yeah, the only thing about 9 lives is that usually you like to have less of the diverse amount of death rattles. So with this, PNC has 2 Ursatrons, which are a fantastic card. Big pickup, by the way, with the Super Collider. It's very nice. The only thing is that he's going to have Goblin Blom, he's going to have Ursatron, Mechanical Whelp, and Cairn Bloodhoof as the death rattles, and Spider Bomb. So it's not going to be as consistent as you'd like compared to some other 9 lives.
PNC, you could see him verbally say, what? He is very confused that Bloodyface went with his tertiary deck. Because I'm sure that he knew the conundrum that Firebat was in yesterday and 100% expected him to play the primary deck, because his primary deck has good matchups in 2 out of 3 and only 1 bad matchup, whereas tertiary deck has bad matchups in 2 out of 3. So it's just statistically better for Bloodyface to go with his primary deck again, to queue it again. But because he knows that PNC knows that it's statistically better to go with his primary deck, he made that call that PNC would play quote-unquote correctly and deviated because of it. So PNC very confused by the Super Collider, and this is just kind of a next-level thinking play by Bloodyface to cue this deck, knowing what PNC's strategy would be.
But he has the use, so in the end, not the biggest of... I mean, it is a nice thing to take down all the mechs on the board, so it's a very important detail. But it's not like PNC can't recover this position.
Yeah, but it also, PNC now knows, even if he has a way to deal with the Super Collider, he now knows that there's also Big Game Hunters in the deck, and the Second Brawl, and the Omega Devastator. So it's not just a confusion of, wow, he had Super Collider, I'm so unlucky. It's, oh my goodness, my game plan is going to be that much harder to execute because of the fact that now I know that he queued his tertiary deck. That's...
Uh-oh, missed hero power. PNC probably thinking that it won't matter nearly as much. Like, I don't think the 2 damage is going to be what really makes a difference this game, but it could. That's what the scary part is.
Yeah. That's the second time so far in this first week of play that PNC's roped out a turn.
Right.
Without playing his full turn.
Right, and he's missed also damage, like, consistently in the series so far. In almost every game, I feel like. He's had opportunities to squeeze out a little bit more damage, and either roped out or just chose not to.
Yeah, with the exception of last game, and no surprise, he won. So,
I mean, sort of. He did miss 1 damage because he traded a 1-1 to a 1-1 he didn't need to.
oh yeah. Early on in the game, the Joey bot, yeah.
So but that's like 1 damage, and he had overkill for the last game.
Yeah.
So it was all right. Just needs to, the only reason why we harp on it is because Mech Hunter isn't a deck that really wants to drag the game out too long. It needs to end the game relatively quickly.
Yeah. I mean, also we harp on it because this is Hearthstone Grandmasters, Dan.
Right. You need to be really tight on your play. Spider Bomb Fireworks tech usually really good, but not in this scenario. That's where you pair Unleash to Hounds with. Usually you Unleash first and then go Spider Bomb Fireworks tech. PNC picks up Karen Bloodhoof instead. That's that we could say that is the 1-to-1 replacement, the Unleash for the Karen.
Who to shoot.
If only Karen was a mech.
I mean, the idea is that you just have stickier minions. And if Bloodyface switched to a slower list that had, the Arcus Elysiana and the Baleful Bankers, Karen is a lot stronger against that warrior compared to the Super Collider list that Bloodyface has.
Yeah, I mentioned that this list from PNC is good against 2 out of the 3 of Bloodyface's decks. This is not the one.
I mean, PNC might reasonably even consider, is there a plan for him to go aggressive? He has Leroy Jenkins, he has Spider Bombs and Fireworks tech as the backup. I mean, maybe somewhere in his mind he's thinking about somehow being aggressive here. Like, Spider Bomb War Gear is, an extra 7 damage if you go face.
Ooh, I wonder what this does.
Ooh. That's a costly trade, TJ. That one hurts.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. And then Dr. Boom Mad Genius picked up. I mean, look, Dr. Boom Mad Genius picked up means that Bloodyface almost has an impervious defense, but, hitting the 9 damage to face also seems pretty good. But 8 damage, rather.
He does get punished by Big Game Hunter, and that's where that deck comes in from Bloodyface, where if you push 9 damage to face, yes, you put your opponent sub 20 health with Leroy in hand, but then you're vulnerable to a huge board swing and a big potential for a 7/7 to stick on the board and attack you in the face.
But he didn't need to magnetize both. He could just magnetize a War Gear and push face.
He could have magnetized War Gear and push face, but then he would have just hero powered.
You could play Spider Bomb independently, but then you don't have Fireworks tech.
Then you don't have Fireworks tech.
So yeah, that's fair. It's fair to say. Replicating Menace versus the Karen. Karen seems much better on average. It just feels like you're super far behind, and you just got Warrior to their starting life till 30, and Bloodyface now has access to a Mega Devastator and second Zilliax.
Oh boy!
Lock it up, TJ.
Boy!
This one is lights out here for Bloodyface. He's gonna dominate the game.
Yeah, I mean he's even gonna be able to double magnetize Zilliaxes onto it and make it Devastator.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The only thing better than the Unity Precision Perfection is twice the Unity, twice the Precision, and twice the Perfection.
Now, while he has the option to do that, I don't think it's smart because then he's incredibly vulnerable to 9 lives and Spider Bomb.
Okay, there's that 9 lives, like you said, and he needs to get Karen. He could also get a Goblin Bomb, a Mecharoo, and a Spider Bomb. Spider Bomb wouldn't be the worst thing, or an Ursatron. So there's just a lot of death rattles, and also partially why I'm not sure about specifically this 9 lives list. Usually the 9 lives is extremely powerful when you pair it with a Zul'jin. Gets the Karen though, that's really big. Really big stuff here for me.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like when you have 9 lives, I've seen a lot of people pair Zul'jin and then just go a little bit more spell-centric with it. Like maybe 1 copy of Unleash the Beast, so you're not like super into the Beast package and making it stranger mechs. Yep. I get it. Like PNC still only can change 5 cards. It's hard enough as is.
The flexibility of Mech Hunter is its downside because he wanted to build his deck to be good against Rogue. But you can't build your deck to be good against Rogue, but also be super consistent against Warrior with just 5 cards that can be changed.
Yeah, he needs more like 7 or 8 cards in order to really make it a clean change.
Maybe even more than that, because you want the full Zul'jin, very lean death rattles, more beast synergy, that kind of thing when you play against Warrior.
True.
So in order to be like optimal against Warrior, right, you can find a nice middle ground with 78 cards, but it's really hard to find a nice middle ground with 5 cards.
Yeah. At the same time, it's like you don't need to go too. You don't need to go overboard. This definitely hurts for PNC having to overtrade 10 damage into a 7 health minion. And Bloodyface gets another delivery drone with another Omega Devastator. This looks like a Game 2 easy victory for Bloodyface. And like I said, look, he didn't even need Big Game Hunter.
Yeah.
Save the best for last.
Like part of it was Warrior being able to have a pretty decent curve, but you know, I think that Warrior has enough tools anyways. That's why I like just Super Collider, and that's why maybe I pick this list every time no matter what.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, PNC maybe plays around the threat of Big Game Hunter, and that's what scares him even more than the fact that Big Game Hunter is not even in hand.
The eyes of the earth.
Another 9 lives here, but I mean,
More Karens, more Omega Devastators.
9 Omega Devastators is enough to kill 9 lives, it turns out.
Yeah.
In fact, you don't even need that. You just need 4.5 Omega Devastators and you kill 9 lives.
Yeah. And just the fact that he got the Dr. Boot Mad Genius relatively early on in the game just helps so much because these Omega Devastators are 14 health swings. He doesn't even need that much, and that's how much they swing.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like what you said. He doesn't need this last Omega Devastator. It's just insult to injury. In fact, he's pushing for tempo, or sorry, pushing for damage. Perfectly acceptable. Doesn't need to do anything else.
Yep.
And I mean, PNC can kind of be like, yep, another Mega Devastator, but there was no chance even without that card.
No, there was.
And he was going to win this game. Crushing victory for Bloodyface, game number 2.
Yeah, doesn't even have to worry about the 9 live Spirit Bomb because he saw both. And they did hit pretty good targets. He hit Karen both times despite so many death rattles in
He
his.
staunchly defends his opinion.
I would say a light belief. Reason being is because I feel like Eternium Rover and weapons projects are crucial to stalling out the game plan of an aggressive mech hunter. So PNC went back to his primary deck, which is a little more aggressive. It doesn't have the 9 lives, it doesn't have the Karen, it doesn't have the mechanical whelp. Instead, it has Mecharoo, Direwolf Alpha, Acidic, Swampu. So just more consistent early game pressure. Now, it's only 5 cards, so it doesn't make that much of a difference. But those tools are very good, and one of the reasons why we saw Bloodyface fall behind in Game 1 was because he didn't have he didn't draw the tools that he needed to get there. But I do think it's more consistent overall. The one thing why I'm saying it's a light belief is because Bloodyface's tertiary deck, which is out of Seon, has double Brawl, which I think is a very big deal in terms of stalling out the board pressure and eliminating the mechs. The big game hunters might be a little bit dead, but I think it's very close, Dan, and that's why I say light belief.
Well, one thing that you also brought up is like the usefulness of weapons project, but I gotta say that Town Crier is probably the most important card, and Bloodyface has had it on turn 1 every single game.
Yeah.
And he's had Militia Commander and Ziliax. This makes it very difficult for Mech Hunter to just get started, you know, and we talked about weapons project and how it's like early to stop the momentum, but these 1-2s with rushers are just as good. And yes, Big Game Hunter is probably not going to ever even come down as its battle cry. At least when it does, it's not going to be very useful until they get to the mechanical whelp stage. But I think the game could often be decided even before that, just based off the fact that Bloodyface has other cards like that second brawl you mentioned or the Super Glider.
Well, there are no mechanical whelps.
Oh, right. I'm saying, like, he doesn't know that right now.
He doesn't know that right now.
All he sees is Acidic Swampus, which is in every single one of PNC's decks.
I think, though, he might assume that PNC has gone back to the primary. Number one reason being is because Acidic Swampus, while there is still one in his secondary deck, there's only one. There's only one copy. And so it's likely that if he has it on turn 2 that he has the secondary.
Huh.
He's protecting the value trade over the mech, I think.
Oh, with the 3-2 trade into the 1-2? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense there. I'm trying to think about PNC's follow-up plays. The Galvanizer does make the most sense in that turn. You're discounting your mechs very nicely. Ursatron can come down. I'm trying to think about if he wants to utilize the tracking next turn or his Venomizer instead. Back over in Bloodyface land, having all those early 3-mana cards still doesn't give him an augment to Elic on 3, which is kind of something that I felt like was going to be a difference maker. But instead, he has Wrench Caliber, Militia Commander, and Ziliax. So his mid-game, he should be perfectly fine.
Bloodyface land sounds like the most terrible and frightening amusement park you could possibly imagine.
I mean, he's very proud of his username. Okay, so...
Oh, yeah. His story seems like he's very proud.
He said that he wished he knew he was going to be using that username a lot. But at the same time, American Horror Story is a great show.
Yeah. Said he came up with the name after being drunk at 2 a.m. with his friends.
Yeah. Like many great stories begin.
I mean, that's how I came up with my name. DJ.
I think the best saying that I've heard along those lines is no great story began with a salad.
Who said
He said while he eats a salad with beer breaks. I have a kale salad with chicken breast right next to it.
Delicious. I have an empty stool.
Gross. PNC, that Ursatron Mecharoo combination seems perfectly fine to me. You need a strong base with the mechs to diversify your options. Is he just pressing with damage with this? Oh, I guess it's out of range of the Militia Commander. I was forgetting the +2 health on each.
Yeah.
Because I was like thinking if you magnetize, you lose the ability. Like if your opponent just has the rush, they kill it. But this is nice. This is a great spot from PNC. I think my autopilot of setting a good foundation of mechs may have taken over, and this ends up being a really important... This is a really important moment, because PNC pushing every bit of damage he can with this magnetized mech. With the Megazord, if you will.
Yep. Now, Bloodyface does pick up his 1 copy of Super Collider. So I imagine just trading in this Militia Commander is going to be a big deal, because then pretty much whatever PNC plays on the other side of this, he's going to be able to trade and get the double value from it.
Yeah.
With the exception of Mecharoo. So we'll see if PNC here...
Fireworks tech. Or a Ursatron or a Venomizer. Venomizer actually has some legitimacy too, because it's also magnetic. But you're stacking too much onto one minion. Like you said, Big Game Hunter becomes relevant. Fireworks tech still makes it a 6-attack minion plus a 1/1. Ursatron just helps keep your hand keeps going. Because you get a mech and you keep cycling through and you're able to establish pressure.
Ursatron it is. All right. Super Collider positioning.
Yeah,
nicely done.
Still weak to Warpath, which is kind of what Bloodyface was setting up for here.
Yeah, he still gets to keep the Ursatron around.
I think Bloodyface is okay with that. I don't think he wants to give PNC the draw, but he does give him a Warpath. Sorry, a War Gear. So I feel like Bloodyface is going to go for this Warpath situation. Hope that his opponent doesn't have that War Gear, which he doesn't.
Well, if he does, he has BGH. So even though he'll take 8 damage, he still has a way to follow that up and gain the tempo back.
That's a good point. So maybe do you not magnetize? No, you have to put it 8 damage. You put it with a 14, and you draw a card. I still think it's fine.
Yeah.
The BGH though.
Yep. And now this is going to be.
I've got the beast in my
The jig is up for Bloodyface now. He knows that he's playing the tertiary deck, but it's too late.
Boommaster Flark. Boommaster Flark.
That's actually
Boommaster Flack. Flakmaster Boom. Explodinator with Boommaster Flark is 6 bombs. That's 12 damage. And Bloodyface does have Dr. Boom Mad Genius. Does have Ziliax. So that is the tension that's building ever so slightly here. If I'm PNC, I'm most likely playing this Explodinator and setting up for a Boommaster Flark. The only thing is that he needs a backup plan. And he already... Oh, actually, hold on. Did he attach a Venomizer, right? He magnetized Venomizer?
Yes, he
and
has
he trackinged over another one.
Yes, he has no Venomizers left.
Oh, that's a very difficult thing because one of the ways you can actually surprise your opponent is to go for a missile launcher Venomizer, which kills everything on the board, including your own bombs.
Yes.
And without that ability, PNC is going to have to hope that Bloodyface is going to have to resort to a bomb or a brawl in order to deal with this. 7 life gain is also massive here. PNC not happy to see that.
Well, missile launcher will kill the bombs over 2 turns. That's one thing to note.
Yeah, and he has tracking, so that actually helps him get the second missile launcher, which is a very real possibility.
Yeah. Time to flark it up, Dan.
Yeah, I think it's the battle of the scientists on 7. The Mad Genius versus the Boom Master. My OCD is going crazy, TJ.
Only you could put the flark right in the middle. I think you can. Wouldn't it be symmetrical if you did that?
Yes, it would be symmetrical. Dynamatic, though. Wow, so lucky. Perfect Dynamatic. Of course, being facetious, it always guarantees that to die because it's the only non-mech minion.
Oh, I think for PNC, this kind of has to be a push. If he magnetizes missile launcher and trades into the Acolyte of Pain, I'll be one sad puppy.
We wouldn't want
What
that.
to do?
Yeah, missile launcher seems like it should come down this turn. And then you have 12 damage on the board. You can deal 6 right now with 1 with the missile launcher effect. Look, I'm not a mathematician, but that has it to 19.
Now, the Dynamatic being on board activates Ziliax.
Yeah.
You did see double Town Cry early on in the game. He's only played 1 Rush minion.
Yeah, and if it's not Ziliax, it could be, shield blocks and other things like shield block, shield slam. It's like there's a lot of possibilities for things to go wrong here for PNC. Direwolf Alpha. Wow, that works out really well. Whoa. And of course, Bloodyface with the Direwolf Alpha knows what kind of deck list this is as well. Doesn't have to worry about 9 lives from Cairn. Big damage coming up from the Bomb Hunter. Bloodyface has Ziliax anyways, though, with the Omega Devastator and Ziliax. Still just as big. Bloodyface also can do something pretty cute of attacking the bomb first to draw a card. He does weaken the bomb, making Missile Launcher a little bit better for damage, though. I think I like the Omega Devastator as a 7/7.
Yeah, he's seen both. Well, he's seen 1 Venomizer, 1 Spider Bomb. We've seen that he tracked over 2nd Venomizer, which means he doesn't have access to that, but Bloodyface obviously has it. So he's thinking there's a few ways to punish it, but either way, he's gaining that life.
Yeah, the only thing he has to worry about is that Spider Bomb, like you're mentioning. I like that Bloodyface actually attacked the Direwolf Alpha. That might look unintuitive because he's getting more damage onto it, but he's not gonna lose this game because he doesn't have enough cards in his hand. He's gonna lose this game because he doesn't have enough health in the bank.
Yeah.
And now PNC needs that Spider Bomb big time. Ziliax works as well. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work.
6 attack.
No. And
Missile Launcher is just an even trade. Oof.
Yeah. It's an even trade, but it does reduce the life gain by 7. Like he could, or I guess 5, if that's the case. Because he can trade in the Ursatron and evaluate. And then like missile launcher or bomb to get to try and activate the bombs.
Yeah, but chances are that he picks up another thing that makes him attack anyways. Like he might pick up a Spider Bomb, he might pick up War Gear, he might pick up a Replicating Menace. He might even just pick up like a Mecharoo, and that doesn't do anything. So I think in PNC's mind, he has to go for this missile launcher trade. There's just too many bad outcomes with the Ursatron to make it worthwhile. as a preemptive trade. Had the Omega Devastator no lifesteal, different scenario altogether. Act of desperation here. I think I'd actually even prefer the hero power from PNC.
I would
because you see the microbots hero power from the Dr. Boo.
Yeah, also the ooze could be crucial for buying yourself time by getting rid of Super Collider or even Wrench Caliber. Because that could let Bloodyface pile on aggression, which could shorten PNC's clock.
Agreed.
Because you can whittle down with the hero power, because it's not guaranteed that Bloodyface is going to have armor gain. He may just never get Flash Shield again and may not draw into his shield blocks.
Okay, hold on.
Well,
there is something really weird in the water.
Well, he had 2, and he's tracking twice, so he only had 10 cards left in the deck.
Yeah, but still a 20% chance. It's just happening a little bit too much, TJ.
Yeah, I know.
That's
getting
all
a little
I'm
suspicious.
saying. It's just happening a little too often.
I'm suspicious, Dan.
All right, this War Gear pickup is still pretty good from PNC. He can push 10 damage this turn with 4 on the board. And still have. Oh, did he use a Leroy? I think he used a Leroy last game.
He used the Leroy last game, so he still has that. He still has access to that.
All right. I like the damage plan. I don't think you have the luxury anymore of waiting.
Yeah, he's got a missile launcher. He's got another War Gear.
This is the second War Gear, I think. The first one was BGH'd.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So he's got missile launcher, replicating menace, Leroy, another
Mekaroo,
another Explodinator, a Mekaroo.
Now.
Another Direwolf Alpha.
and then a bomb. Because you have 8 cards highlighted right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I only have 5 cards.
Oh, the Mekaroo.
6.
Give me
Nice down 7.
I get what PNC is doing here. He's trying to utilize the magnetic ability while it can guarantee damage. But this is where missing that 2 damage here and there might really start hurting. Oh, man. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, he also played around BGH with this play.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the second BGH.
At the same
Second
time.
BGH. You're not beating the second big game run, right?
Yeah.
Because it also could be the second Omega Devastator, which happens to be the case.
Yeah, I think you just go all in there and try and push as much damage as possible, all in on one minion, hope he doesn't have it, and take the risk.
I mean, in contrast, he wouldn't have gotten the Ziliax damage. He would have Ziliax in hand and 2 more damage onto his opponent.
Yeah. But Bloodyface here, pushing in for the kill. Now 3 bombs in the deck, and has another Wrench Caliper loaded up.
Blast Shield pickup from Bloodyface. That could probably do it here. PNC doesn't have a clear way out, and it seems like Mech Hunter is going to suffer the same fate as its beast brethren, falling 0-2. Orange and War Control struggling a little bit in Europe to try and get wins with their Beast Hunter, even against the Warriors. Bloodyface looking like he's in prime position to cruise to another victory. Yes, it might have gone down to double digits, but it wasn't really that close.
Wrench Caliper and another Elec.
Just, wow, yeah. So 3 more bombs, so 6 total.
Yep.
And then he can double trade. Actually, by doing this, he clears off his own board. But I think he's okay with that. He's firmly ahead. And gets 20 life. PNC has 1 card. When I say 1 card left, you only can play 1 card.
Only can play 1 card.
And then draw a bomb! PNC's like, huh, okay. Replicating Menace was probably the best pickup, but Bloodyface got picked up Microbots. That's like the right counter to it.
Yep. Hero power and hope he picks up something to magnetize onto? I don't know.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, too. Like, if he was hoping that he could magnetize onto it, he could have hoped for the Replicating Menace and then start magnetizing everything. But then he wouldn't clear the board. He would have more damage on Bloodyface, though.
Yes.
And I think damage ultimately matters the most in the late stages of the game here. PNC does not have any good outs here from what I can see. He's going to hold on to the Replicate Menace. I mean, wait for the Micro Boss to pass. Like, it just feels like it doesn't do anything if you play it.
All right. 7 bombs.
Yeah.
More than half his deck.
Right. Oozes played. Makes total sense here. Micro Scrod can just come out preemptively anyways, which is the same problem that he had last game. Bomb. Bomb.
5 left.
Bomb.
4 left.